Hi guys, we're going to cover both sections A and B of chapter 18 today, both having to do with sound waves, okay? So, as you know, sound travels as a longitudinal wave and it requires a medium. So it is considered a mechanical wave, but it travels as a longitudinal, kind of the slinky looking waves, okay? Sound can travel through solids, liquids, and gases. It's the compressions. So here we can kind of see, let me get my pen. You can kind of see the areas of compression there. That's considered like a higher pressure area. So the particles of air really are going to be pushed together because of that sound wave moving the air closer together. Okay. Um, yeah, and that can cause some funky stuff with something called acoustic levitation, which I'll show you a video of, or you can just Google acoustic levitation. Speed of sound. That is an actual picture of a jet breaking the speed of sound, breaking what's known as the sound barrier. This first happened back in 1947, and a test pilot by the name of Chuck Yeager was the first human being to travel faster than the speed of sound. It was called a sound barrier because it had never been done before. It was difficult to get something to go that fast. It was also called a barrier because scientists had no idea what was going to happen. They didn't know if his jet, and that's not a picture of his jet, that's just some other jet. They didn't know if it was going to break his plane apart. They didn't really know what was going to happen. That's why these test pilots are like super brave and kind of crazy because they go and do things that nobody else has done before and they really don't know what's going to happen. A lot of test pilots in Chuck Yeager's time went on to become astronauts in the Apollo program. He actually did not, but he's always been very famous for breaking that sound barrier. So the speed of sound isn't a constant. It totally depends on the material it's traveling through. Typically, we're talking about air, but that even changes depending on the temperature and the altitude that the object is traveling. Okay, so Chuck Yeager flew up really high because the speed of sound wasn't quite as high as it was closer to the surface. Okay. This is what it is at like sea level in dry air at about 20 degrees Celsius. So on the surface, it's 767 miles per hour under normal conditions, normal being dry, very low humidity, and 20 degrees Celsius. Okay. It increases with temperature. So the warmer it is outside, the faster you have to go, the higher the speed of sound is. Okay. In general, and there's some exceptions to this, but in general, sound travels fastest in solids and slowest in gases. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with like distance, okay? But just the actual speed of sound goes fastest in solids and slowest in gases, okay? And then also in general, if you're within the same state of matter, so if you're just considering gases, the speed will decrease as density increases. Okay, and this is why you like. Well, we'll talk about that later. Just know that as this density of the gas increases, it slows down that speed of sound. Okay. We've talked about this in class before, but here it is again, this idea of pitch and frequency, okay? So we have what's known as an acoustic spectrum, and that's just this range, kind of this, you can have high frequencies, low frequencies, high wavelength, low wavelength, okay? So shorter the wavelength, the higher the frequency, okay? Because if the wave is small, if it's short, it can pass a certain point much faster, okay, at a higher frequency, and so that should make sense to you. The reverse is also true, okay? Pitch is a description of how the sound sounds, high or low, like a deep, bass sound or like a high-pitched kind of scream sound. And those are related to frequency. So the lower the frequency, the lower the pitch, and vice versa. The higher the frequency, the higher the pitch, okay? On a piano, the low note is about 27.5 hertz. Remember, that's a measurement of frequency. And the high note is about 4186 hertz, okay? Lower frequency, lower pitch, higher frequency, higher pitch. And this is also related to the length of the medium, okay? So the shorter the string, the higher the frequency. And this should make sense to you. If you stretch a rubber band really tight and you pluck it, it's going to make a higher pitch than if you have this really long loose rubber band. It's going to make a deeper sound. Okay, so the shorter the medium, higher the frequency, higher the pitch. Longer the medium, lower the frequency, lower the pitch. Okay. Our normal hearing range, range of human hearing is between 20 and 20,000 hertz. And this might narrow with age. So as your ears kind of wear out a little bit, the extreme ranges might get a little narrowed, and you might not hear quite as well. Okay. We're going to talk about how the ears work in just a minute. There's another kind of relationship of loudness and intensity. It's kind of a description of the energy of sound. So loudness is our perception of the intensity of the sound. And the intensity is actually how much energy is in the wave. Okay. So more energy in a wave, it's going to have a higher amplitude. It should make sense that the higher the intensity, then the louder the sound. Okay. That should just make perfect sense to you. And you can try that yourself. When you whisper, you don't have to put very much energy into it. There's not much intensity. You can almost visualize kind of a small amplitude. But if you increase your volume, or if you're shouting and you're trying to get somebody's attention across the field or whatever, you can feel that you're having to push more air out of your body, more energy behind that. Okay. The loudness of sound is measured in decibels. Okay. It's given the abbreviation lowercase d, uppercase B. Anything above 85 decibels, anything sustained above 85 decibels can actually cause hearing damage. Okay. Anything above 120 decibels can actually cause pain. Okay. So chances are with your AirPods, you're probably, and I love loud music too, but especially because it's that close, even if it's not that loud out here, if it's that close, that energy is hitting your eardrum and the mechanisms behind your eardrum, and it can actually cause hearing damage. So just be careful with that. If you go to live concerts, it is a good idea to wear earplugs. I know it seems like a waste of money, but I've been to concerts before where I haven't worn earplugs, and this is even when I was younger, so it's not because I have old ears. And for like 3 days, my ears felt like I had earplugs, felt like I had cotton in them. It's almost like they were swollen. And that's just because that loud sound had really kind of deadened my hearing for a few days. And it came back, but we need to be careful with that. Our ears are sensitive, they're fragile. Timbre is kind of a description or a quality of a specific sound of a particular instrument. It's kind of hard to explain. It's just used to just describe sound again. It can be pleasing or unpleasing. There's kind of the difference, the description between noise and music. Sometimes it's up for debate, but sometimes it's not. There are different sounds, different tones that are more pleasing to the ear when those are strung together in whatever pattern that's considered music. And then there's just sounds that aren't pleasing. There's tones that aren't pleasing, and that would be considered noise. It's not a judgment on the music you listen to or anything. It's actually a scientific thing. All right, so our voices. Sound waves come from a vibration in our larynx, okay? So the larynx is at the very top of our trachea, surrounded by cartilage, and there's these kind of stretched folds of tissue called our vocal cords. In guys, you can see their Adam's apple. Part of going through puberty is the larynx actually gets bigger, the vocal cords get longer medium, deeper voice, right? So these vocal cords are stretched across the opening, and they open and close. So as air is coming out, you're actually moving your vocal cords. Think of a balloon. When you stretch a balloon, it makes that really high pitched sound, and then you relax it and it comes out in a deeper sound. So the vocal cords can kind of change the vibration of the air. Okay. Again, longer cords, that deeper Adam's apple, deeper voice. Shorter cords, higher voice. Our throat and our sinuses then act as these kind of echo chambers, these resonating chambers to change those sound waves into more recognizable sounds. Okay, we kind of do this without thinking, but you can just change the sound that's coming out of your throat by moving your mouth. Okay, our tongue and teeth and our lips then help us. When you talk, you're kind of cutting off the sound waves a little bit. Your tongue is helping you make different consonant sounds. All these things work together to shape the sound waves that then leave our mouth and then go and hit somebody else's ear. Okay. And all of this is kind of powered by our diaphragm. Our diaphragm, remember, with inhaling and exhaling, when we can only speak when we exhale. Okay. Well, I mean, it's not necessarily true. I can write you talk when I inhale. Really awkward. Okay. You need air to pass over those vocal cords, and it just happens easier to do it on the exhale. Now, if I need to add to the intensity of my voice, I'm going to expel more air over my vocal cords, and our diaphragm allows us to do that. If you've ever taken voice lessons or singing lessons, they always talk about, talking or singing from your belly, and that's because that's where your diaphragm is. All right, so then the sound waves get to our ear. All right, our outer ear consists of what you can see. Okay, this outside part, the ear canal, and then it stops at this eardrum right here. Okay, that's the outer ear that collects the sound. Okay, you can put your hand behind your ear, and it actually collects even more sound. The sound waves, those compressions, hit that eardrum right there. And that's just a thin membrane that seals off the outer ear from the middle ear. And that vibrates when sound hits it. So when those compressions hit it, it actually moves the eardrum. Okay. Now this gets transmitted into the middle ear, which consists of these three tiny bones. Okay. The malleus, the incus, and the stapes, also known as the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrups. Tiny little bones. They take that vibration and transmit it into that snail-shaped object right there. Okay, and that's in the inner ear. So the inner ear consists of that snail-shaped object. This guy right here, that's the cochlea. These are the semicircular canals. Those have nothing to do with hearing, but I'll tell you about those in a second. The cochlea is it's that snail-shaped thing, and it's filled with fluid and these little kind of microscopic hair-like cells that vibrate. So when that vibration of the sound wave hits the eardrum, travels through these bones, and then it kind of shakes that cochlea, those hair-like cells move, and it sends that information to your brain through that nerve. Okay, and your brain can just interpret it and let you know what you're hearing. Okay. The semicircular canals are also filled with fluid, but those help us determine the position of our head. You know when your head is down simply because the fluid shifts. You know when you're on your right side or your left side, and that just helps us with balance, not our ears. So all kinds of amazing things in the body that God made for us. All right, take care of your ears.